From the very beginning, this was Josh's trial, not yours, Brandon. This was a chance to get justice, to do right by Josh. As a good friend, the pain of his loss has been overwhelming, not just for me, but for everyone who loved him. Josh was the kind of person who was always up for anything. I remember texting him on random weekend nights to lure him out to hang out. He'd always take the bait, even taking an Uber all the way to Claremont just to spend time together. We also bonded over dog sitting. Many evenings were spent together wrangling two unruly dogs while watching over our friends Shannon and Scott's pets. Funny enough, sorry, I'm so nervous. Funny enough, those dogs absolutely adored Josh. They barked and cornered everybody else, but not Josh. His kindness and warmth made him a natural dog whisperer. What I need you to remember, Brandon, and I urge you to think very hard about this, is that Josh was a real human being. Flesh and blood. He had feelings, aspirations, and a love for life. He was loved by so many. He wasn't just a name or a figment of someone's memory. He loved, and he was deeply loved in return. I can't say for certain what Josh would have wanted regarding your sentence. He was compassionate and might have hoped for mercy for you. But Josh no longer has a voice. He's gone. Forever. I'll never laugh with him again, never have him serve me a beer at Cheers, and never play bar games with him. His life, full of joy and potential, was taken far too soon. What you did has consequences beyond measure. Josh is gone, and those who loved him are left with an unfillable void. Your actions and the decision to cover up what you did are unfathomable. I am not your maker or your God, and I cannot say what you deserve. But I hope the court takes every factor into account and delivers a sentence that is just. I also hope you truly understand the gravity of what you've done and feel the weight of remorse for the rest of your life. Thank you.
Next, Your Honor, I'd like to invite Mickey DeGuia to the microphone.
I want to believe that if I had traveled back in time, I could have somehow stopped the events that led to Josh Gilliland's death and yours incarceration. My feelings are not unique. If there's anything anyone on either side of this case can agree on, it's that they wish you didn't make this grave mistake. I've sat through most of the court proceedings, listened to the evidential perspective, and learned about certain aspects of your life. I was devastated to hear about how many chances you got, how many times this could have been prevented. From your past experiences, your own body shutting down to prevent you from driving, people stopping, cautioning, and even saving you. You possibly tried to save yourself with your own idea to call the rideshare service to take you home. All in an effort to spare you and everyone affected of this tragedy. I know that on June 10, 2023, you might have been round out and woke up the next day, hazed, dazed, hungover, maybe not remembering how you went from driving to inside your home. You suspected you hit something, and slowly, after seeing the undeniable evidence unfold, a reality formed worse than any nightmare you could think of. The evidence presented provided that even if I was there for all of it, I could not have prevented what happened that night, nor made you stay on scene and own up to it. Whether you remember what happened that night or not, what you did was wrong. Someone died because you drove drunk. Again. This time it was not an isolated incident. Many people were or will be forever changed after that night. From those that will hear this incident to those directly affected, like yourself and Josh. If you frequented the bars in the same areas mentioned in your case, Josh could have been in a dark corner of one of them and at the same time as you, seemingly living a quiet existence. Despite his keep-to-himself demeanor, his presence was big and his impact wide. I'm not surprised that this case is still televised. But this is not to overshadow your own life. This spotlight is on you. You got to live. Josh did not. I believe that because of your actions, you took a life, that the life you took is your responsibility to shoulder. You are not only responsible for Josh's death, but also for the life he no longer gets to live. I believe because of that, you might experience double the amount of sorrow, double the amount of worry, double the amount of pain, double the amount of joy, hope, happiness, loneliness, fear, anticipation, frustration, grief, and every emotion possible to experience. Whatever your reasons for drinking that day and night, whatever motivated you to push your limits and endanger lives, whatever made you feel that you had no choice but to run, hide, and cover up your friends, those feelings will be doubled with the addition of facing those feelings while incarcerated. But if you are living for both you and Josh, it might help you to be more than someone who drove drunk and killed someone. Clearly, Josh wasn't just a pedestrian victim to a drunk driving hit and run case. You are more than someone that will have limited freedoms because you are guilty of these 8 counts. Throughout your whole trial, we saw people that were here believing you are worthy of support and care. You are still a father, a friend, someone that people love and care about. You have a family. You have people that will wonder about you and worry over you. Every responsibility that you have will be doubled, and somehow you will have to fulfill your responsibility with additional titles. Inmate, convict. The additional titles some might have for you will be harsh and unforgiving. Still, don't be a lost cause. You ran after you repeated a mistake that cost lives. You can't run anymore. I urge you to take the time you have to work with and through your feelings responsibly. You believed you were lucky the first time you got a DUI and that your cousin was watching over you and watching out for you. Although you have found out you're not invincible and you cannot run or hide from your crimes, you are still lucky. Don't lose sight of that. You still have your life. Even when everyone continues to live their life without you, you still have yours and Josh's life to live. So as life continues for everyone you hold dear and you start to feel the amalgam of emotions due to time standing still and the monotony of being incarcerated, it is my hope that you will find motivation to choose to live better. You will always be of importance to someone while you are locked up, while you are not, and even after you die. Those backing you during your trial are proof of that. It was not easy for them to sit through your trial and hear the worst about you while trying to hold the best memories of you. What I want from you is for you to make honorable choices you, the people you care about, and Josh's people can be proud of. Choices that spread love and care, compassion and understanding. This was Josh's legacy and why he was so loved. Opening up to yourself and others about yourself, your mistakes, your successes, your experience, and lessons learned. They could save or improve lives. This is not really just for me, but for you. Everyone that cares about you and everyone that cares for Josh. Lives are still in your hands, in your care, entrusted in you. No matter where you go and what
we do have to get to our break, but we have more of this sentencing and the killed in the crosswalk murder trial for Brandon Janik ahead. We're also seeing movement in the California courtroom where ASAP Rocky is on trial. All of that here on Court TV after this. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Julia Janae. Thank you for following along with us this afternoon. We are tracking several major trials this afternoon, and most of them in California. Opening statements are expected to begin soon in the trial for rapper ASAP Rocky. He faces 24 years in prison if found guilty of shooting at a former childhood friend. We see movement in that courtroom, but they haven't started yet. We'll take you in there once those opening statements begin. And in that very same California courtroom, opening statements are underway in our other live trial, the celebrity stylist murder trial for Monica Cementelli. She is accused of conspiring to kill her husband with her lover, who is already serving a sentence. In that case, we have a delay that is ordered by this judge. We'll bring you that when we are able. Plus in Idaho, Brian Koberger back in court for a second day as his defense team tries to get evidence thrown out of his quadruple murder case. And in San Diego, California, sentencing underway for Brandon Janik. He was found guilty last year in the fatal hit and run of a beloved bartender. We're keeping you updated on all of these trials, but let's go there to that sentencing for Janik, where we're hearing those victim impact statements. Josh Gilliland's sister speaking next.
My name is Lindy May. I am Joshua Thomas Gilliland's sister. He was born March 16th, 1976, and he was only 47 at the time of his death. We grew up in a very small town in Kansas. The town itself had less than 2,000 people, and there were only 36 in Josh's graduating class, which was considered a very large class. The majority of those 36 kids went to school together from kindergarten until they graduated high school. They were lifelong friends. It was and still is a safe town where everybody knows everybody. If you got into trouble at school, your parents knew about it before you even got home. Our parents were good parents. They both worked in our hometown, and our father was a highly respected attorney, and our mother was a tough but excellent fifth grade teacher. She was Josh's fifth grade teacher, and he would tell people that she cut him no slack and expected the best from him just as she did from all of her other students. Our parents taught us respect, responsibility, and common human decency. We fought like any siblings do, and I probably fit the mold of a typical big sister who loved to torment her little brother. Josh was all of the things a little brother should be. He was loving, sweet, and funny, but also ornery, antagonistic, and had a way of driving me absolutely crazy. But as we three grew up, we learned to like each other and even became friends. Looking back, I can see what a great brother Josh always was, no matter how much I tormented him. When I was 10 years old and Josh was 6, our mother, our grandmother, Josh and I were in Topeka, Kansas. We were caught in a dangerously severe thunderstorm that in the end caused us to be in a tornado's path that picked up our vehicle and moved us a mile down the road. There were many side effects from this storm, both physical and emotional. From that day forward, Josh was left with an overwhelming fear and anxiety of storms, and was very candid about the fact that thunderstorms would always cause him to have panic attacks because of that day in Topeka, Kansas. I believe that this is what led to Joshua to be a very cautious person with his own personal safety. And for that reason, Josh was always very aware at crosswalks, always waited for the pedestrian light, and never crossed when he shouldn't. He went to great lengths to make sure he was safe from the very type of accident that took his life. For the past 18 months, my sister and I have been living a nightmare that no one should ever have to go through. All of this was entirely avoidable, yet we have been thrust into a position that we could have never envisioned, and one that Josh would have never wanted for us. My sister and I should never have had to bury our little brother. My sister and I should never have been put in a position that made us relieved that both of our parents had already passed away. Our mother, would have never been able to endure what we have had to live through for the past 18 months. But here we are, left without Josh and left with the pain we will always have because he is gone and how he was taken from us. My husband Carl and I have 2 sons, Parker and Brody, both of whom have Down syndrome and both of whom have had to endure more death, more loss, and more heartache than any of us should ever have to live through. They understand death. What they didn't understand, and quite honestly shouldn't have had to understand, is how someone could, in cold blood, kill their Uncle Josh and take him from them. They didn't understand murder. They didn't understand what a hit and run was, but now they do, and the questions don't stop. There was no closure for them, no chance to say goodbye to Josh. And now our youngest prays to have his Uncle Josh back. And this is what we live with every day and probably will always have to live with. I do not wish any harm to Mr. Janik. If I did, that would make me no better than him. That would cause heartbreak for his loved ones, and because of him, we know what it's like to be those loved ones left with heartbreak. Because of his choices and his willful actions, we are left with no brother, no uncle, and endless heartbreak. Mr. Janik willfully and arrogantly slithered back into his car on June 10th, 2023, when he thought no one was watching, even after admitting he was drunk. Mr. Janik drove when he could have walked, and he did this because the rules didn't apply to him. Mr. Janik thought he was above the law. He took my little brother's life and then, even more arrogantly, went to great lengths to cover up, hide, and get out of what he did, instead of being a man and owning up to his unforgivable mistake. What I wish for Mr. Janik is to sit in his prison cell day after day, hour after hour, and minute after minute, to constantly see my brother Josh, his sweet face flashing through Janik's mind, because that is what we are left doing. Only being able to have Josh in our minds and our memories and not in our lives. But what's even more sad about this is my brother is not the only victim. Mr. Janik has actually managed to make our entire family victims. If these roles were reversed, I am confident he would want the maximum sentence for the one who killed his loved one. Yet when it was his life on the line, Mr. Janik went to such unfathomable lengths to make sure that he did not have to pay for what he did. His life was the only one that mattered to him, not Josh's. Mr. Janik did not care how far-reaching his actions were. If he did, he would have considered that what he had done hurt even his own family, making his children victims too. I do not know if Mr. Janik will speak today, but just in case, I want to make sure I am clear about how we feel. If Mr. Janik stands up here to say how sorry he is and how remorseful he is, I don't want to hear it. None of us want to hear it. It would all be lies. If Mr. Janik were so sorry, then he wouldn't have spent 3 months trying to cover his tracks. He wouldn't have spent 3 months tracking news stories to find out if there had been any new developments so he could save his own skin. He wouldn't have committed insurance fraud, telling the adjuster there were no injuries, and he most definitely would not have pled not guilty, which would have saved our family, and even his own, from having to live through the horror of what he did, the murder he committed. We don't want Mr. Janik to tell us how sorry he is. He is not sorry for what he did. Mr. Janik is sorry he got caught. If he were truly remorseful, he would have stopped and not ran, and he would have not left Josh for dead in the streets. We have sat through this trial and listened to all the horrible things that Mr. Janik did in killing Josh and then to save himself. Now I'm going to tell you about the person who wasn't saved in all of this. He wasn't saved because of the selfish and arrogant actions of a complete stranger. I want everyone to hear how wonderful my brother Josh was. He was kind and generous and funny and loving. Josh was arguably one of the most intelligent people I have ever known, but he never flaunted that he knew more than anyone else. He never made anyone feel lesser than him. Josh was in San Diego living his absolute best life. He worked hard, had loyal friends, and loved his family so much. And now Josh has 5 nephews who miss him daily, friends who also loved him, who don't get to be in his bright presence, and his 2 sisters who are now without their little brother, who should never have been taken from them so soon. I know that every family thinks their loved one was the most kind and loving person. Josh really was that person. He was the best son a parent could ever ask for. He was the best brother and the best uncle and the best friend to more people than I could ever put a number on. Josh called me on my birthday every year, and the last thing he always said was, "I love you, Lindy." That is how he ended every conversation and every visit. Those are the last words I ever heard my brother say, the last words he ever spoke to me. And that is who my brother Josh was. I am asking the court to consider the immense impact this murder has had on our family. Joshua Thomas Gilliland was more than just a person. He meant so much to so many people. We are pleading for justice to be served so that his memory can finally rest in peace. I am asking for the maximum sentence, that the law can be upheld by you, Your Honor. Josh should be alive right now. He was a productive member of society who led a positive and happy life. My brother has touched thousands of lives and will continue to. Your Honor, I beg that you hand down the maximum sentence for each charge, that the sentences run consecutive, not concurrent, with no chance for early parole. This will assure that Mr. Janik is unable to hurt anyone else for the longest amount of time. He has proven that he will do this again. He was given a second chance after his first DUI, and even after knowing the severity of the crime, if he were to drive drunk again, he chose to do it anyway. He is not capable of making responsible, safe decisions. The maximum sentence available to the court will give a sliver of peace to our lives, knowing that Mr. Janik is away. Please, for the sake of me and my family, my children, give Brandon Janik the longest sentence at the disposal of the court. Finally, I would like to thank the state's attorneys, Ms. Williams and Ms. Dunlap, and the discerning and judicious jury.
Hitting the pause button on this emotional victim impact statement coming from the sister of the victim in this case, Joshua Gilliland. He was a beloved bartender there in San Diego. We are also keeping our eye on another California courtroom, the one in Los Angeles, where A$AP Rocky, a rapper who is on trial for an assault, something where he turned down a plea of 180 days. He is now facing up to 24 years in prison if he is convicted. The parties have gathered, but the jury is not inside of that courtroom, so we're keeping an eye on it, and we'll take you there once those opening statements begin. Stay with us. You're watching Court TV, your front row seat to justice.
Childhood friendship that turned into a feud and ended with shots fired.
Now, a famous rapper and Rihanna's significant other
faces felony assault charges.
The trial of A$AP Rocky, today, only on Court TV. Join Court TV's Vinnie Politan with the latest and breaking true crime stories.
Now, let's look at the other side of all of that.
Vinnie Politan Investigates, tonight, 9/8 Central, only on Court TV.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. Let's go back to San Diego, California, where we are watching the Killed in a Crosswalk trial, this sentencing hearing that's happening now for Brandon Janik. He was found guilty last year in the hit-and-run death of a beloved bartender who was fatally struck while walking to work. Let's get you back into court now. We've been listening to the victim impact statements. Up next is Joshua Gilliland's brother.
Ever since I got word that Josh had been struck by a car and he was not going to make it, I've been thinking about what I would say in a victim impact statement. Even though I've had a year and a half to put something in writing, I've struggled. How do you write about the worth of the life of your younger brother who you thought you'd never lose? I will not be able to express perfectly what I would like the court and Mr. Janik to know, so I'll just speak from the heart. On June 11th, 2023, I received a call from Josh's best friend and former partner, Scott Moore. Josh had been struck and hit by a hit-and-run driver on the previous day. Scott's words to me that day, this is the end for Josh. Harsh words, but just what I needed to hear so I could understand the gravity of what had happened. Still, I was paralyzed with shock. I could not get a hold of our sister Lindy right away, so I called my best friend from kindergarten, Wendy, who's a nurse, and said, what should I do? Wendy said, we're going. She told me to pack my bags and head to her house and that she would take care of getting the airline tickets. We flew out to San Diego and we're here within a few hours. Scott and his partner Shannon picked us up at the airport and took us to him. Josh was unconscious. I hope he heard me as we cried, prayed, and sang over him. Those few days before he passed are precious to me. I did my best to express in his last hours how cherished and loved he was. I was privileged to be with Josh on the first day of his life. as his big sister. And in the moment when he took his last breath, he passed away. I heard a lot of hard things during the trial, but there was one moment that was nearly a gut punch in its impact on me. Ms. Williams played a phone call between Mr. Janik and the insurance adjuster. Mr. Janik asked if the accident was going to make his rates go up. I tried to remember what would have been going on for us when that phone call happened. If I remember correctly, Josh had not passed away yet when that phone call happened. I was sitting at the deathbed of my little brother. I was worried about whether he was in pain, whether he understood his value and how important he was to me. Mr. Janik, who'd read the news story of the accident by then and must have realized that he hit Josh, was worried about his insurance costs. I don't know what Mr. Janik was feeling or thinking, but his actions and words after he became sober show even more clearly that his decision to drink and drive must have come from a callous disregard of the lives of others. I want the court to know that I am not coming to this sentencing hearing from a place of vengeance. I don't hate Mr. Janik. I'm still angry and will bear a sadness for the rest of my life and the loss of Josh. That's forever. I have a lot of compassion for Mr. Janik's family, particularly his children. Before we knew it was Mr. Janik who struck Josh, we knew it must have been a drunk driver. Nevertheless, I had this thought then. If now that he is sober, he shows the integrity of turning himself in, my statement to the court is going to give him credit for that. But he did not. He could have, but chose not to. Was it cowardice? If so, that's just a form of selfishness, the hollow lack of compassion that would cause someone, when all of his inhibitions have been removed by alcohol, not to pull over and cry and just break down, but instead to speed away and replace the windshield and try to cover his crime. I would have asked the court to acknowledge Mr. Janik's courage if he'd overcome the fear of coming forward, the fear of losing a sliver of what he'd taken from Josh. But I'm not going to ask for leniency, not a day, not an hour. I'm asking the court to impose a maximum penalty on Mr. Janik. Mr. Janik had a second chance at life after his first DUI. He had another chance the night of June 10, 2023, when he could have walked home after passing out behind the wheel in the street. He had even one more chance to show character by coming forward, taking responsibility for the life he took. But he did not. I never want another family to endure what my sister and I have endured. I don't want another family to have to give permission for a loved one to be removed from life support because of a catastrophic brain injury. Never want another family to make the decision to donate their loved one's organs and then pray that their loved one passes away quickly enough so the organs are usable. I never want another person to thank God that their parents have passed so they don't have to know what happened to their son. I am so thankful that my mother never knew what happened. Most of all, I don't want another person to be walking across the street, slammed into a windshield, ripped out of his shoe, thrown to the pavement, and left for dead. I want every driver who hears about Mr. Janik to remember what the Watson advisal means. How much of your life you can lose when you take someone else's while driving drunk. I want this court to do what it can to send the message that running, hiding, covering up, that's not what our community accepts. My brother said nothing to me after the collision because he never regained consciousness. But I do remember my last conversation with him. It was a phone call, a couple of weeks before the accident. He had told me he was thinking about moving back to Kansas and asked me if he might live with me for a while until he got things figured out. I was looking forward to spending time with him. That was stolen from me. Josh loved cooking, and we would have had so much fun making Thanksgiving dinner together and soups for Christmas. Josh loved cooking so much that one Christmas, all he asked for was a recipe box from our mom, and that each family member sent him a favorite recipe for that box. The project led to a discussion of putting together a family cookbook, which we did with the help of an aunt who organized it. Hardly a week where I don't open that family cookbook to one recipe or another. I use it more than any of my other cookbooks, and it's all because of Josh. Our family loves playing games, all kinds of games, pitch, pinochle, word games, board games. We grew up around the dinner table with a deck of cards in our hands. So many of my memories are wrapped up in family game nights. That was something else that was stolen from us. Josh was funny. He had a sense of humor. He loved to laugh and make others laugh. He and I had a special friendly competition when our mom was still alive, who could be the first one to call her and wish her happy birthday or happy Mother's Day, and then call to gloat to the other one. Usually Josh was quicker and made the call first. He dearly loved our mother, and when she passed away in 2018, he got a tattoo of a mustard jar in honor of her memory because her maiden name was Mustard. Josh loved his family. I have 3 boys, Ian, Quinn, and Colin. My sister has 2, Parker and Brody. All 5 of them loved their Uncle Josh. When I was pregnant with my first child, who ended up being born on April 5th, Josh called me on his birthday, March 16th, hoping that I was going to go into labor that day so the baby would have the same birthday as him.
These family members of Joshua Gilliland are painting such a picture for this judge of who he was and what his loss is going to be for their family and for the community. Let's bring in our criminal defense attorneys who are standing by here in studio. Marie Pereira, Jack Rice with us. And we've got to talk about and help our viewers also understand what the sentencing could look like. 15 to life for the second-degree murder and all of the cases that could, or charges that could go along with that, the hit and run, the DUI with serious bodily injury, and also an additional 8 years for insurance fraud. Your thoughts on what a judge may do with that?
I'm hoping the judge gives him the maximum, and I'm hoping that the judge sentences him to consecutive time for the 2 different crimes. Insurance fraud is one, and the murder is another. So if they tack them together, it leaves him in prison for much longer than if they made it run concurrent, as if it just was just one event and one time in prison. I think the victim impact statements are important because it humanizes him and it shows the court how permanent the loss is to the victim's family's survivors.
Yeah, because the sister, she spent a lot of time talking about no remorse shown by Brandon Janik, why he didn't stop that day, why he didn't call, why he even made them go through a trial, why didn't he plead guilty? Your thoughts, Jack, on what the judge may actually be using in the victim impact statements?
Actually, hers was really effective because she was talking about specifics on enhanceability, how you can actually see them as 2 different acts and why each was so horrifying. But what I particularly appreciate about that is this, is remember, the prosecution doesn't represent this family. The prosecution represents the people as a whole. And this is the singular time when the true victims, if you will, have the chance to voice what this means. Because the victim wasn't just the man who died. It wasn't just their brother. It was all of them. It's this entire family that sort of gets decimated as a result. And so when they get to stand up and say, this matters more than you understand, to be able to not just humanize them, but to say it's not just his loss, it's our loss. This was a theft. And the word that the brother used was theft. And to use that and put that in front of a judge and say, it's easy to become callous because this judge sees it every day. Instead, what you say is, don't forget my brother. Don't forget this case. It's not like the other 10,000 you've seen. It's this one. That's important.
They're articulating in a way that really does illuminate his life for us.